Hey everybody, it's Meredith Miller, integration coach and author. Today, I want to talk about discernment and judgment. I want to talk about what the difference is between these two things and why they are important. Why, if you are not utilizing discernment and judgment, you could be putting yourself in unnecessary danger. So, discernment, the way I experience it, is like a feeling. I believe it comes from the heart. And it's that sense that you have that's probably very connected to your intuition, which tells you this feels good, this feels right, this is vibing with me, or this is not. This doesn't feel good, something doesn't feel right, this just isn't resonating with me. That's discernment. It's an energetic thing. Feeling is energetic, right? Intuition is energetic. It's something intangible, but you just feel it. You just know whether this is good or bad for you, right? It's not an overall judgment of this is good and this is bad. It just means this vibes with me, this feels good to me, or this does not. Judgment, I think, is a mental concept. I think this is the logical mind which assigns labels and categories to things based on association so we can understand the role of that thing, right? The purpose of that thing or that person or that situation, whatever it is. So, why is judgment important? Often what you'll hear in spiritual circles, especially, is how judgment, you can't be judgmental, you don't want to have judgments, and that is true to a certain degree, but the caution I want to urge you is spiritual abuse. And one of the most common things that I hear and that I experienced myself in the realm of spiritual abuse are people trying to tell you that you are a bad person and you're not spiritual and you're not a whatever if you judge other people. Here's why this is completely false and can be used as a spiritual abuse. If you are with a manipulative, abusive person, it is a matter of life or death that you put the label on that person: manipulator, abuser, predator. If you don't put that label on that person, your mind is going to get hooked into that Stockholm syndrome, the trauma bond, and remember, it's not an intellectual thing how you got hooked into that, why you got hooked into that abuse dynamic. It wasn't intellectual. It doesn't mean you're not smart. It doesn't mean you're stupid because you got hooked into that. There are very clear, psychological things that happen, and then connecting to even your nervous system, your brain hardwiring, and everything that happened when you get into that Stockholm syndrome kind of situation, creating that trauma bond. Then it becomes very difficult to use your thinking brain to recognize that that person is dangerous, because your brain automatically deletes the dangerous, abusive things, forgets that stuff, and wants to focus on the positive and the good. That's the danger. That's why you must put that label on that person. That's something I learned from Iñaki Piñuel. He is a Spanish psychologist or psychiatrist from, I think, Barcelona, and he talks about in one of his videos, putting the label on the manipulator. This is absolutely important. So many of you are probably in relationships with someone who had some sort of spiritual or religious beliefs, and they utilize that spiritual abuse against you, telling you, you can't judge me, you have no right to judge me, who are you to judge me, blah, blah, blah. And the reality is, when you are with an abusive, manipulative person, you have to put that judgment on so that you know that is dangerous, so that you know you need to get out of that situation, away from that person. You need to set boundaries to keep yourself protected, to maintain your health, your sanity, and your well-being. So, if you're still in a relationship with someone and at some level this person is abusive and manipulative and they're really distorting that spiritual belief around judgment, you got to listen to yourself. You got to trust your intuition, that level of discernment which says, this doesn't feel good. And then the judgment which comes from your mind, which says, this person is a manipulator. This person is an abuser. This person is using me. You need to put that label on that person so you know to step away. Okay? It's like if you see a lion running in the field, are you going to run up to that lion and want to give it a hug? No, because that is a predator. You're probably going to run the other way. You're going to go hide. Why? Because your brain knows, even despite the fact this is a beautiful animal and it's probably hard to take your eyes off of it because it's so graceful in the way that it stalks its prey in the field and everything. But your brain knows, you learned at some point, that is a lion. You put the label lion, and then you know that lion is a predator. It will eat you. You don't want to walk up to that thing and hug it, right? So that's something that you learned. It's a judgment that you put on there. You place that judgment on that beautiful animal, which isn't a bad animal. It just happens to be a predator. And you put that label on there so you know to stay away, to put up boundaries, to get yourself to safety, because you and that lion really can't coexist unless you want to be its dinner, right? So think about that when you're thinking about abusive people, manipulative people. You have the right to make those judgments. You have the right to use your discernment. If you grew up in a family that was dysfunctional in this way, where there was an alcoholic or an addict or a narcissistic parent, chances are very high that you learned and you were taught to subjugate all of your feelings, your emotions, your perceptions of reality. And when you felt, this doesn't feel good for me, you were punished, you were put down, you were forbidden to have expressed that, and forced to be someone that you weren't. Right? So if you learned that growing up, recognize that now as an adult, you need to overcome that, which means you need to start listening to that sense of discernment you have, those feelings you have. This just doesn't feel right for me, or this feels really awesome for me, and stop wasting your time hanging around with people that you don't feel good around. Again, it doesn't mean they're necessarily bad people. It doesn't mean they're necessarily negative people. It doesn't mean that they're narcissists. It could just be that those aren't the right people for you. That's not your tribe, that you're just not going to feel great. You're not going to feel alive. You're not going to be able to really fully express your joy around those people. Don't hang out with them. It's better that you go home and spend time by yourself and work on yourself and spend time on your self-care and feel amazing within yourself, cultivating that feeling inside yourself so that the right people show up in your life eventually, people that you really have that vibing with, right? Don't waste your time around people like that. And most definitely don't waste your time around people that you have to put that label, that judgment of manipulator on. Don't stay around those people. They will mess up your mind. They will really, just get you all confused. And like I said, they're going to use that spiritual abuse and tell you that you are a bad person for judging them, that you should just love them unconditionally and accept them unconditionally for who they are. And I'm going to make another video at another point about unconditional love versus love with limits and why I believe in that. And why, I believe that a lot of times in spiritual communities, they really abuse that idea of unconditional love when it comes to predators like this. So utilize your discernment, utilize your judgment, share some of your comments below, let other people know how that works for you, how you experience that discernment, maybe some experience that you had where you knew that wasn't good for you, you knew that person was dangerous to be around, and, they forced you not to listen to that discernment that you had, and they made you feel inferior and small, and like you weren't allowed to place that judgment on them of who they are. And go ahead and share that below so that other people know they're not alone. So many people go through this when you're dealing with a narcissist or other manipulative person, and it's important that you listen to yourself first and foremost. That is self-care. That is self-love. I know it's really hard to do when you have to choose between your own intuition and the person that you love. And when your intuition is speaking a lot louder and you're hearing that and you're like, man, that just doesn't feel right, you got to choose you. You got to choose your intuition over anything that anybody else is telling you. I'm sending you a big hug.